This is the Apex Bros podcast, sponsored by Victory Fuel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Apex Bros podcast. We're here because we took a week off because we were like, oh, why don't we just take a week off and, relax? And then we completely forgot there was an F1 race. Yeah, so we didn't get predictions in for that one, but we did get predictions in for the last weekend with all motorsports running. But yeah, welcome back, Max. It's been
Been a minute.
basically 2 weeks. Yeah.
It's felt like ages, Leander. It's been too long.
Yeah. But if you are feeling thirsty during this break of summer heat, please drink Victory Fuel and use code APEX10, which is APEX10 at checkout for 10% off your order. Prediction results. Let's just hop straight into it, right?
Yeah.
So Max, we are not beating the allegations.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was actually like really bad this weekend. Me and Leander picked the exact same. Kirkwood for IndyCar at Toronto, and he finished second. So that was nice. But the one time I didn't pick Colton Herta, he decides to clutch up and win. But I ain't too mad that I didn't pick him, but I'm mad that I missed that opportunity. So yeah, Leander and I got Kirkwood. Rob and Nate picked Scotty Mac and Will Power, and they wound up losing.
Those two had beef.
Yeah, they did have beef. Very interesting race between the teammates, which we'll get into in the podcast. But pretty interesting race all around. We had a lot of guys actually make mistakes and crazy crash that we saw at Toronto. I was barely watching it, but I was able to catch the red flag replays of that whole incident, and it was just, I was shocked that Santino Ferrucci was able to get that high up off the ground and launch off of powder like that. But overall, pretty interesting race. I wouldn't say it's good, but I wouldn't say it's bad. The only thing that I feel like was making it interesting from what I was able to see in the highlights were the miscalculations by the braking points by drivers. Like, I remember, I think it was one turn with Ericsson and Rosenquist, I think, where Ericsson broke too deep and he almost took out Rosenquist, so they had to go up to runoff. And then obviously the beef between Power and Scotty Mac, and yeah, that was a crazy race. Glad that best friends were able to finish
we'll
one,
talk
too.
about it. Yeah, we'll talk about it in a little bit. Let's get through our predictions
Yeah, I'm
here.
getting a little too ahead of myself.
Yeah, yeah. Max is too excited today.
I am. I'm so happy
Okay.
it's back.
It's just 2 weeks pent up frustration and energy. All right. F1 Hungary, we did not have and no one had Piastri winning, even though it was actually a pretty good pick to have him winning. But, well, obviously. Me and Max did our thing and picked Verstappen. That did not go well. He had a meltdown and essentially launched himself into the next Rocket League update.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Lewis Hamilton, I think P3, and Lando Norris P2 after controversial McLaren once again. With another disaster class of a strategy. I'm getting too ahead of myself again. All right, let's do next race trucks at Indy Raceway Park. Yup. Your boy
Leander.
picked your boy Leander picked a great time to pull out the Majeski pick.
Now, it would have been way easier for me to just go with whatever Leander picked, and we would have tied, but I decided...
Max decided to be different.
I want to be different. I wanted to go with consistency, and I wanted to go with Heim, and thinking he was going to win again, considering how he's been, and yeah, it was a bad weekend to pick Heim.
Yeah, let's just say Heim's not good at IRP. That's probably one of the only tracks. Rob picked a little bit of a shocker there in Sawalish, but he did good for another, I think, what is his fifth start in the truck series. And then Nate picked Ben Rhodes, and Ben Rhodes has not been having the best of seasons this year. All right, Xfinity Indy, what a fucking race that was. Crazy race. I picked Almirola. Max picked Custer.
So I actually beat you because, well, I beat you because Custer finished second.
Yeah, but we both finished top 3, so I put us both in green.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess I'll
But
give you
hey,
the points.
I mean, it was second versus third.
Yeah,
So
but at the end of the day,
it's podium.
second's better than third.
Yeah, true. But yeah, Almirola, after his suspension, I guess team suspension or whatever that was, he is
Back.
back performing. He almost stole one,
Mm-hmm.
but Riley Herbst clutched up, showing why he deserves that 2311 seat. Maybe. Oh, we'll talk about
I
that
don't
later.
know.
We'll talk about that later. Rob picked Justin Allgaier, and so did Nate. They had some weird times there. And then the good old cup race. Nate actually picked the winner correctly. He
Somehow.
picked Larson. Yeah,
That's actually
didn't
crazy.
expect that. Yeah, but he picked Larson. Congrats to him. Rob tried to go with the every 10 years it's a 24 dub, and it was definitely not.
Not with this next gen.
Inside wall. Yeah. Denny Hamlin was Max's pick.
Um,
Please stop picking Denny Hamlin.
well, yeah. Yeah. I only have myself to blame.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that kind of screwed Max out of
Backfired me.
the week win here, but
Yeah.
yeah, I picked Reddick P2. Thank goodness I picked him. I was gonna pick Byron, but I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna go with the Toyota man,
I wish you would
Tyler
have picked
Reddick.
Byron. That would have been so funny.
Yeah, we would have been like almost close on points. You would have won actually, but anyways,
Next
yeah.
time.
So I win this week. Well, not this week, but 2 weeks ago I win.
Yeah. So you won.
Um, Yeah, and then we didn't pick for the F1 race, obviously
Yeah.
at Spa, but we kind of knew it would be a not Red Bull dub. I think we could
See
figure
it.
that out
Yeah, we could see
ourselves.
it
Yeah.
coming.
George Russell had a shocker, but we'll talk about that later. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, big thanks to Victory Fuel again for sponsoring us ever since the start of the good old podcast. So yeah, use Apex 10 at checkout, and yeah, let's move on to IndyCar.
Alrighty, starting off the IndyCar portion of this podcast, we got Toronto recap. What a race that was, and what a hectic race it was. He had
Oh, dude, it was
its,
such an amazing race. It
you
felt like a carnival.
you had its literal ups and downs, with crazy crashes, crazy moves, and a kind of unexpected but expected winner at the same time, with Colton Herta starting from pole, literally led every single session. I think that was the first time in IndyCar history.
First clean sweep.
Yeah,
First clean sweep.
But I heard on Connor Daly's podcast that Colton doesn't count that as a clean sweep because he wasn't able to lead both sessions in qualifying. But regardless,
I don't know.
it's a technicality in his book, in Colton's book, but it's official in IndyCar's book. First clean sweep of IndyCar's history with Colton Herta, leading every session. So first off, let's talk about Scott Dixon's insane fuel save mastery that we all know Scott Dixon for. We all know he's insane with somehow getting the most out of his fuel tank when he needs it most, and Scott Dixon once again proves that again this past IndyCar race weekend. I don't know how under fueled he was compared to everyone else, but from what I heard, he was pretty bad shape with fuel, and he somehow pulls through again, and saves enough fuel to make it to the end. And then Pelot's fight through the field to gain those valuable championship points over, I believe, Will Power in second place right now, and we'll talk about Will Power in a moment about Toronto, but Pelot was able to get through the field very clean and very methodically. They don't call him a surgeon for no reason. I think that's what they call him. Anyway,
Yeah.
he's insane, just getting through the field and timing the passes and everything, and it's just really just beautiful seeing them work through the field. And then to round off the recap a little bit is Andretti, best friends forever, finishing 1-2. Me and Leander were crying tears of joy as our favorite drivers finished 1-2. Herta
Yeah.
and
We were
Kirkwood.
aggressively hugging. aggressively.
I plead the fifth. Anyway, Penske beef. Let's talk about that for a second, Leander. So going in, I don't know what corner it was because I'm not familiar with his Toronto layout.
It was a left-hander.
But I know it was a left-hander. I don't know what number corner it was, but I knew it was after the long back straightaway. Going into the corner, Will Power sends it on the inside of his teammate, Scott McLaughlin, which then pretty much
What was it for? P7? P6?
I don't
P7?
know. It was somewhere in the top 10. He then doors, pretty much side pot, slams him off the racing line and into the barrier. And Scott McLaughlin, as Will Power is passing him under caution,
Round of
was,
applause.
round of applause, showing his displeasure. And it brings up the question, is the internal beef in Penske going to be the shortcomings in the potential fight for the championship for this season?
Honestly, if they're racing like this and it's not even crunched, it is maybe a little bit crunch time, but Will Power didn't need to make that move. I just think they think Pelot is so much ahead of them that they're just throwing haymakers at each other and just tripping over each other. So I think this beef is gonna, it might continue. I don't think Scotty Mack is the type to carry it on. He'll probably have a talk with him and they'll fix it themselves. But I don't know, man. I just think Will Power is just trying to get everything he can. Maybe he thinks it's his career's coming to an end soon, so he's trying to get as much as he can and try and catch Pelot. But this just benefited Pelot. I mean, if
Yeah,
Will Power would have stayed where he was, he would have been only losing what, 5 points on the
couple,
championship lead.
handful at least.
Yeah, like it. There was no need to make the move there. Exactly what Scotty Mack said.
And I think
So there's no need to make the move. It was right there. You could have had a great finish for all cars, because it ended up screwing Newgarden too, because the field stacked up, and then Newgarden, I forgot he kind of just went off and went straight and locked him up. But
I think what the side that we're probably not seeing maybe is Will Power side as to, in his defense, um, that track is hard to pass at already, and when you try to make a move like that, I mean, you don't. It's kind of hard with this hybrid engine. You know, it obviously helped out with some of the passing in the track too, but at the same time, you saw a lot of guys overshoot some corners because they misjudged the speed they were carrying into some of these corners. And you know, I feel like in Will Power's defense, yeah, he needed to make the move, but it wasn't at the right time. It was bad timing on Will Power's part, but you don't know how many more opportunities you kind of get at those kind of moments, and it really depends on how much faster Will Power was and Scott McLaughlin. You know, was McLaughlin saving tires, and was Power able to push more than Scotty or Mac, or I don't know, but it's always situational. How these incidents happen, because it could have been very well in Will Power's defense, where it's hard to pass at a track like Toronto already and sharp corners, and you know, it could have been just a slight miscalculation, and that just, you know, that happened, or you know, it's just, I don't know. It's
just
tough
one
to
of those
call.
deals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's tough to
but
call.
I'll tell you what. Roger Penske gonna have a ton of calls with them too, and all of his drivers.
Yeah, he's got to do the old Rick Hendrick, sit him down with cookies and milk.
Oh, I don't know. You might have to do might have to do a little Hamilton Rosberg action, because
Yeah.
this one was pretty egregious.
Mm-hmm.
I will not lie. This one, I just don't see why he sent it in like that. Maybe Pelot's just that good. He's just making everybody go crazy
I
with moves.
guess. Yeah.
Because P18 to what, P4?
Yeah, that's
Wild,
insane.
wild. Yeah. So in, I think, what is it, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
I think
Yeah.
2 weeks. Yeah, for every series pretty much.
After
But
this weekend, it'll be next week. Next weekend, the
yeah,
10th, I believe.
yeah. So I guess 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
Gateway, our next
Next
course on the
racetrack.
schedule, our good old oval friend Gateway. Little preview there. I think we see the hybrid engine have a little bit more of effect than it did at Iowa, in my opinion. I think it'll be very subtle. I think it'll be more passing than Iowa though. I think Gateway you can really send it in there and get some different lanes going. Not too many different lanes, but at least a little bit compared to Iowa. Again, we expect Penske to be strong at Gateway. We expect I think Malukas can do well in a shank car on an oval. I think
Yeah,
those
this will be his
three
first.
parts.
It'll be his first oval race of the season, isn't it? No, well, Iowa.
No, he had Iowa.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he had Iowa,
I want
and
to
then
bring up the stats for the past uh, 7 races at Gateway. Going all the way back from 2017, Will Power seems to be or not Will Power, Joseph Newgarden seems to be the best guy to place your
oval
bets.
goat.
Yeah, to
Oval
play.
goat.
Well,
Yeah.
some will say oval merchant.
Uh,
Because
fair,
I mean,
fair.
let's be honest. Newgarden and Penske, I think the only way Penske can win championships is if they have more ovals in the season, and it proves to be correct so far. Considering how well they've done, Indy 500 win and then back-to-back Iowa doubleheader wins this year. So look to at least any of the Penske drivers to really be good this weekend. But Joseph Newgarden's gonna be the guy you want to place your bets on. He's won 4 of the last 7 races we've been there. So he is the guy to get to place your bets on, really. I mean,
Yeah,
last
and
guy.
then the hierarchy would be what? Newgarden, then Scotty Mack, then Will Power.
Yeah.
Because I just think Scotty Mack might be on a roll soon.
I mean,
on ovals.
yeah. I mean, after getting his first oval win and finally considering himself as an actual
An
IndyCar driver,
Yeah.
that kind of mojo will probably get him to the top step of the podium potentially in the next race weekend. But our last race winner there last year was Scott Dixon, taking it from Scott McLaughlin, who sat on pole. So
yeah, Dixon's always a threat at any track.
Yeah,
So,
he's always up there.
Yeah, I would say watch out for Pelot. I'm not saying he'll win the race, but it's going to be interesting to see how he runs at Gateway because it's going to be a very good picture of what he'll run like at Milwaukee for that doubleheader.
Yeah, they're both very flat tracks.
Yeah,
long
so
corners.
Could be very interesting for the championship if Pelot cannot grasp with the flat tracks. But speaking of grasping, will Jamie Chadwick grasp a ride for next year?
I was really questioning him when you were gonna go at with that
Yeah, no, I
conversation
tried.
started. I was
I had
like,
to. Yeah, shock factor. Shock factor.
Well, okay, I think she will. Just depending on how well she does in the IndyCar test. But I mean, she's already shown that she's capable of winning races in NXT, and I believe that if she gets a solid enough ride, with some kind of Andretti alliances, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit,
Yeah,
I believe that she can be a top 5 consistently top 5 runner next season. But it will come with growing pains because I mean it's a lot faster car, a different different driving style, I believe, with IndyCar compared to Indy Next. But I believe she will move up, and I have no doubt in my mind that she'll be in a competitive race car in 2025.
yeah, and I will say, thank God we actually have a woman like Jamie Chadwick who has actually won, and she is showing her talent right before our eyes. So um we don't have to question if she has what it takes because she's won. She's beaten everybody in NXT for a
Yeah.
race. So from pole too. So we're all good. So we can I think and this will link into the next topic I'll bring up here. With the rumors from Tony Donahue, our lovely man on Twitter, that we so graciously appreciate for telling everybody news. Yeah, it's looking like Andretti, of course, going to Chevrolet, leaving Honda. Doesn't affect Chadwick. She'll just be in Andretti pipeline.
This,
But what's interesting is that they'll move to Chevy and most likely have a relationship with Junko's Hollinger Racing. And apparently, some more news.
yeah.
Brian Herta could be heading to JHR
Yep.
and possibly part of the ownership group there. So it's
If that's true, that makes more sense to see Jamie Chadwick going to Junko's Hollinger Racing next season.
yeah, and
If
I
that turns
think
out to
and
be
I
true.
think that would mean Canapino is out, most
Yeah.
likely from the 78, unless they can somehow get a third car going, which I don't think they
I
would be
think
able
this
to
is a
do.
smart
But
move because if you think
and
about
you're
it,
bringing Grosjean in.
I
You're
was gonna
getting
say, yeah.
Grosjean, who used to be an Andretti
I
driver.
was I
So
was literally gonna talk about that. I was literally gonna
it's
say
we're the same person.
I was literally gonna say you got Jamie Chadwick with a former Andretti driver with Romain Grosjean, and just the knowledge that she's gonna be able to learn from him, from what he's learned at Andretti and Juncos Hollinger Racing. She is gonna be able to grow so much within those two teams if this, this rumor is true and everything, and she does go to Juncos Hollinger next year. Um, she is gonna be she's gonna be able to be more competitive way faster in the season than I think most of us really expect.
Yeah, and oh my goodness. Okay, this is completely impromptu. This is not in the notes. But yes, I think
Oh,
real quick, yes,
overseas.
I think Chadwick gets to JHR, and I think Herta could be kind of that anchor guy that can take him up there. But um, there's there is more rumors about
Where's this at?
basically. So, um, well, let me tell you this. All right.
Yeah.
So with Andretti trying to go to F1 and everything with the GM
Oh
deal, them
wait,
switching to Chevy.
I think I know what you're talking about.
IMSA with GM as well with Wayne Taylor Racing and Caddy. McLaren could be going to Honda.
Okay, yeah, I know. I didn't actually expect that. I thought you were talking about
Yeah,
the different
no.
news. That's insane. So,
Because remember the engine allocation, this puts Chevy at a very difficult spot
yeah,
with engine
because
allocation. So
yeah,
I think McLaren could take a better contract with Honda and then yeah, it would just make sense.
hmm.
And with Andretti seemingly trying to get in NASCAR, um, with his Andretti Global, their whole interview thing today, I think it makes sense. Andretti goes to Chevy, has that relationship with Juncos, and yeah, that could open the door for McLaren to Honda, which would be insane. Seeing what Pato, Siegel, and Lundgaard and Honda. I mean, we know Lundgaard's good in a Honda. He's just been at Ray Hall, so
Yeah,
um, yeah, I
yeah.
think McLaren with Honda could go insanely hard, and
Ah,
I also would be hard.
okay, bro.
Um,
I'm gonna be honest. It's gonna be weird if that pans out to just
oh,
see
100%. 100%. Hey,
Pato
but wait,
Ward driving a
Tony
Honda.
Kanaan. No, but Tony Kanaan has those ties to Honda.
I guess, yeah, that's
TK,
true.
TK. I mean, shit. Honda was the one that gave him like his return back, right? That whole
I think so.
Jimmy Johnson, Tony Kanaan split
Oh yeah,
schedule.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Forgot
Yeah,
about that.
so which was supposed to be his last 500, then he did another last 500, and then he was teasing not doing the last 500, and then he'd have another last 500.
And it just keeps going,
Anyways,
going, going.
yeah, but yeah, no, that would be very interesting. I think the Andretti to Chevy is pretty much done deal. They pretty much have to because of their deal, but yeah, I think this would rule out Prema having a relationship with Andretti though. I think they may share some tech stuff, but I think Prema wants to do the Legacy Motor Club in NASCAR and build their team on their own without major crutches from a bigger team. So respect to them for trying to do that. Speaking of Prema, they have rented a new workshop, and it is near the Andretti campus. And the owners, of course, built the facility, knowing that IndyCar teams are flourishing right now. And yeah, it's near the Andretti campus, and Yeah, but I don't think there'll be a potential collaboration anytime soon. Maybe on a couple things, but not as not nearly as much as what Juncos and Andretti are going to be next year. I think Chevy might have been angry with McLaren a little bit for cutting ties with the Chevy team and helping them get better, but maybe that's why they're moving to Honda. You never know. But we do know Andretti to Chevy is pretty much a done deal from our sources, at least, and just based on everything happening in the paddock and what I'm hearing. So it'll be interesting. Of course, Chadwick looking better to move up next year, and we come back to Logan Sargent, of course, in talks with the usual, talking to Prema, and I think he will sign with Prema. I think another name floated out there was Ray Hall, but they're going after Zane Maloney, who tested literally today
Mm.
at the Indy Road
I
Course.
wanna I wanna bring up something real quick, not to interrupt, but
Oh, no, you're good.
who do you think Prema's gonna fill up the lineup with next season? Since they got 4 or 5 cars next season lined up. Who do you think is going to be in their seats next season? Obviously, we already know Logan Sargent is most likely the top candidate to be in there. But who else do you think will be in there? We got Rossi leaving McLaren at the end of the season. He could be up there. Um,
Well, I already know the answer. I'm gonna let you throw out the usual suspects, but I already know pretty much
okay, well,
who is going to be in there.
so please tell me because I'm running out of names to really think of
Our
who's going
our
to be free
good old
agents.
friend from Chevy, Renus VK.
That's right. I forgot. Wait. Oh yeah, because he hasn't signed a contract for next season yet, has he?
No, he's a free agent and
Mm.
he's in advanced talks and they're just waiting on, you know, charter stuff and everything to then seal the deal. Kind of like what's happening in NASCAR.
Also,
So, yeah, that'll
Teo
be Ed Carpenter's ride opened up.
Teo Porcher could also be a top candidate going in there as well, considering he's getting help from F1 World with Sauber. I think he could be one of the
Yeah,
regs next
him and
season.
Zane Maloney. Sauber really likes the F1 or F2 to IndyCar pipeline right now.
Speaking of the
Sauber,
pipeline,
please come to the podcast.
speaking of the,
Speaking of pipeline, yeah.
what do you think the skill difference is between the F1 pipeline compared to IndyCar's pipeline? Do you think that guys that come over from F1 are going to perform better in these new cars, or do you think the drivers that come from NXT up to IndyCar have a better shot of outperforming the F1 drivers because they already have experience driving on some of these tracks that the IndyCars race at?
I it's hard to say, but just me watching Formula 2 and how they have to race compared to Indy Next, I think the F2 drivers and former F1 drivers have a little bit of an advantage. They're used to having much more to do in the car, much crazier things happening around them, much more G forces, much more everything, pretty much. So I would say that they're at an advantage. I think Indy Next is good as a feeder series. So. Here's the thing. I think Indy Next is closer to IndyCar than Formula 2 is to Formula 1. But Formula 2 and Formula 1 are better feeder series per se to IndyCar than Indy Next. And it's very weird to think about it like that, but honestly, if you look at the skill of drivers, Yuri Vips, for example, F2 driver, did very well, was going for an F1 seat, then, some stuff occurred. But he went in IndyCar and he did phenomenal. Pietro Fittipaldi is kind of like, a little bit different because he hasn't really raced a Formula car a lot and he's kind of been out of that scene for a bit. But man, it's just I think they're at an advantage. I think it's more advantageous to go F2 and then come to IndyCar just because I think those cars are more similar than Indy Next to Formula to IndyCar.
My other question about this pipeline discussion is, so we all know that Herta isn't able to go over to F1 because he doesn't have the credentials pretty much to be in the F1.
Super license
But
points, which is
the issue is because F1 is saying you have to go through our feeder system to be able to race in F1. You can't just come over from like a separate, um, racing discipline and just hop in an F1 car and expect to be fast. You have to learn how to race these guys in these type of cars and go through the series. And to be honest, Herta's too old. I feel like Herta's too old to be in F2, F3, and all that stuff. So I don't think Herta's ever going to be able to go to F1. But the question I have is why isn't IndyCar doing something like this for former F1 drivers going over to IndyCar? And I feel like it's because they're a lot more open to having more
competition and competitive drivers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, the more drivers they have in the field, the more competitive it is. I mean, the qualifying times between race to race is like literally top 10 separated by like 5/10 at least. It's
even with it
way
being
more
a spec
competitive.
series, it's still, even if it wasn't a spec series, I think it would be even more competitive than Formula One.
So
Even though F1, last few weeks has been incredible, it's just IndyCar has consistent competition, and there's still like mechanical advancements and engineering stuff and air tunnel stuff that'll pop up randomly on a weekend where one team just has it better than everybody else. And that's how it should be.
The difference between F1 and IndyCar is that IndyCar doesn't have as much mainstream media acknowledgement like F1 does right now. I mean, F1 really got popular because it was a perfect storm with the Drive to Survive series, and then COVID happened. That's how F1 got popular, because of COVID. No one had anything else to do except watch this cool F1 documentary, and that's how they blew up. And it's literally all over mainstream media. Everyone's talking about F1 now because it's trendy and it's easy to watch at times.
The new big thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And the one thing that IndyCar fails at is the promotion of
marketing
races.
aspect.
Yeah, the marketing aspect for race to race. I mean, we see how much effort they put into Indy 500 weekend, and literally once the clock hits midnight in May, they start going crazy with all these Indy 500 posts, and they don't do that for
any other race.
Yeah, they don't do that for any other race. They only do
and I have a good story about this. Yeah, and I have a good story about this because I literally live in Tampa, right? St. Pete is literally the start of the season.
Yeah.
I see one billboard, no local ads. I've seen one local ad during local news. I've seen rarely any posts. I see, like, hey, the teams do their thing. The teams are like, hey,
they
this many days before that. But IndyCar just doesn't do it. And I don't know what it is. I think it's Penske mainly not staying with the times. But yeah, it's very interesting.
One thing I do have to say about that, just before we move on as well, is that Stingray Rob, the only reason I'm able to really keep up with whatever he's doing and know where he finishes, because my local news covers Stingray Rob, because he's from Idaho as well. He's from Payette, Idaho. And our local news covers that driver because he is a local guy and he races in IndyCar, and it's a big deal because, not very often do you see a sport athlete from Idaho like go into, like, I don't know, NASCAR top level or NFL top level, Super Bowl winning champion. You never see that, do you? And so to have that local support is also really nice, and it also opens the IndyCar media to more people who don't watch it, and that's what I feel like is nice about at least Stingray Rob being in the sport, is because it makes it a little bit more accessible for us. Yeah.
But that's it for our IndyCar segment. Big thanks to Victory Fuel for sponsoring today's episode and pretty much all our episodes until we are 90, as Ryan Reynolds would say. But yeah, moving on, we will have NASCAR. All right, let me just add JPM, Glenn. And then, yeah, we should be good.
There we go. Arca.
Arca.
Just Marco.
All right. I think we should do something fun first and do the driver quiz results thing.
You want to do that first?
Yeah. I'll read through our results here.
Wait, were you gonna segue to me, or I think you segued to me from the F1 segment?
Yeah, when our
'Cause I'm doing
NASCAR
the
section
closing, right?
ends. Yeah,
I'm doing
when
the
NASCAR
closing.
section ends, you'll wrap it up. The
Oh yeah,
NASCAR
because there's no
section.
predictions. There's no predictions.
Yeah, pretty much. No, but so the F1 section goes after NASCAR, so you have to lead into the F1 section too.
Wait, so how are we recording this?
You just say, and now for F1. That's all you gotta do.
Oh, so you guys record this out of order. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what?
What? Alrighty, are we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Maybe you're
All right.
ready.
Are you
Yeah.
recording? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Hey everybody, and welcome to the AVAC. Why am I doing an intro? uh, oh, dude, my
Wrong
body hurts
part.
too much for this. My body hurts too much for this. NASCAR. Oh, we're recording this on the next day. That's why we're so
Oh my gosh.
weird.
You don't have to mention it to the viewers. We could just do a seamless transition and it's gonna be
No.
fine.
We don't do seamless
Max,
transitions here.
Max. No.
You,
When you do the IndyCar thing, you should just put the next day, and then it goes to NASCAR.
you don't need to you don't need to tell the listeners that we're recording this on this next
Motherfucker,
day.
we're
All
already a day
right.
behind.
All right,
Oh
fine.
my gosh.
Fine. Okay, let me redo. Okay.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So for our NASCAR section, we decided to take the NASCAR driver quiz to find out which drivers we are most like or matched with, kind of like Bumble or some random shit. Um. Anyways, we all answered, I think, truthfully and honestly, and made sure that we knew what we were doing. And yeah, we'll go through the results real quick, see if we matched with any of you listeners out there. I guess we'll start with me because I'm talking and rambling. So my number one was Eric Jones. My number two was Tyler Reddick. My number three was John Hunter Nemechek, and my number four was the GOAT Justin Haley. I'm fine with my picks because I do like Legacy Motor Club, and Tyler Reddick is usually my pick on Sundays. But yeah, no, it was pretty cool to see how NASCAR is doing this thing where you can match with a driver. It's good for new fans too. And then it's even funnier when some of your friends get drivers that they hate as the person that they match with the most. Max, who are your top four?
No surprise, Denny Hamlin. Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace, Keselowski. Keselowski was kind of the oddball in there, but I feel like the top three are very easily identifiable with me, considering I am a Toyota guy, Toyota fan, JGR 2311 Stan over here. And it was pretty cool to just select the different categories that like you yourself see doing, and then seeing at the end how well you match with certain drivers. And it was pretty fun. So yeah, Denny
Yeah,
Hamlin, my number
we're
one
not
goat.
beating the allegations. We're not
What?
beating the allegations.
Oh, it's because we're
We got
Reddick.
Tyler. We both got Tyler Reddick number two, and then
Um,
our top three were all Toyota drivers, and our fourth was a
Ford.
RFK Rick Ware driver in a Ford.
Yikes.
So
That's not good, man.
um, But thankfully, we do not have this problem with Rob. Rob, what are your top four?
So my top four were Austin Cindric, Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell, and Ryan Preece. So I had a completely different top four from Leander and Max.
I think what I gotta start doing is just start like cheering for the drivers and supporting drivers that are completely opposite of one of my top four right now. That way I can like stop getting the same exact results and picks as Leander, just so I can stop all this nonsense with us being the same person.
You can't
See,
escape
you gotta
me.
root
You
for
can't
William
escape me.
Byron now.
What was that, Rob?
What?
You gotta root for William Byron now, though.
No,
That's what that
no,
means.
no, 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 no.
Or Chase Elliott?
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Hey, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, guys. Okay, I'm not becoming a Hendrick bandwagon. At the very least, I'll become an RFK bandwagon.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I would also become an RFK bandwagon if I had to choose.
Okay, yeah, I know you
So
would.
yeah, we're not beating the allegations.
Sure.
Speaking of allegations, Brickyard was very interesting.
Yeah.
With
Quite
with
the
a
quite the
yeah,
controversy allegation over there, huh? It's just
quite
full
the
of
allegations plural.
full of allegations over there.
Yeah, it was
They should name
yeah,
it the Allegations 400 instead of the Brickyard 400.
the Brickyard 400 presented by Florida Georgia Allegations, and Big Machine Allegations as well. But yeah,
And
Kyle
Dixie
Larson
and
won.
Dixie
400
Vodka
at the Brickyard.
and Dixie Vodka.
Dixie allegation.
Yep.
Um, anyways, Kyle Larson won, of course, as we saw in the, I think it should be his primary scheme, the Coke 600 IndyCar double scheme. Unfortunately, they took Aaron McLaren off the car, which kind of sucks. But I definitely think it was a horrendous finish. Not to say that I didn't think Larson would win. I think he'd win anyways. It was just how it was handled was not great and not what the fans deserve or what the drivers deserve, to be honest. But yeah, I think we can all agree that that was definitely a caution, no matter who you support. That was definitely a caution. There was confusion with the Ryan Blaney Kyle Larson restart when Brad came down pit road and ran out of fuel.
Yeah,
With who's the control car, and I still don't
I
think we're
think-
clear on that.
I think NASCAR probably should have done the best case scenario and just re-rack them or do another pace lap.
Yeah, just do another pace lap. You don't have to lane change, but just do another pace lap, make sure everything's good, and then
That
let
way,
'em
at
loose.
least the two front drivers know who's starting the restart.
yeah. And I still think Larson would have won just because he had freshest tires and the hella fuel. So
Yeah, better
I
fuel.
I don't think it would change the result, but at least it would give everybody a fair shot. But yeah, I think we can all agree with that. I know people were pretty argumentative on social media and other podcasts.
Yeah, this is where
But
the
I think-
allegations come in.
Yeah, with the
Everyone
yeah.
accusing NASCAR and Hendrick linking up and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just think it's NASCAR being stupid more than anything. We've seen this before with Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, the main three that have benefited from no cautions on the final restart. And then of course Ryan Blaney seems to always be in the losing position of
Well, he seems to be a Ford driver at least.
yeah, Ford driver, but I mean, hell, Blaney since the All-Star race in 22, it's it's been downhill. But yeah, I think we can all agree that that was a horrendous call and should have just re-racked them up, and they should have just officiated it like how they used to, with certain drivers, running out of fuel. You don't want the field to die like they did for a couple restarts. Yeah, sure, but got to give everybody a fair shot. So. Yeah, it's definitely interesting to hear the debates on social media still that are going on. But let's flashpoint to another topic for Kyle Larson. Is it time to start talking about him winning his second title?
If he still,
I mean, if NASCAR keeps gifting him ones like this, absolutely.
I was gonna say something along the lines of that, but I'm gonna say if he keeps on running the way he does, at least in the past couple months, by like being inconsistent, but at the same time being fast at certain tracks, I'll say it's a 50-50 shot that he'll get to the Final Four at least. Just because we've seen the last year and a half Larson drive in a way that we've never seen him drive before, and that being very aggressive and for the most part reckless in certain circumstances. And so just like if he doesn't clean up his act before the playoffs at least, or before, I'm gonna give him till round of 8. If he doesn't clean up his act with being aggressive and reckless before round of 8, I don't think he's gonna win the championship. Because yes, I know you have to be aggressive with this next gen car, but at the end of the day, it's having the fastest car and also being the most consistent car on track is what's gonna win you the championship nowadays. You can't
Yeah.
you can't just run over your fellow competitors that are in the championship hunt and expect to not get anything in return later down
And
the line.
even folks who aren't in the championship hunt, hell, if Chris Buescher
Yeah.
misses the playoffs, he's gonna think about Kansas and how he got door
Well,
slammed.
not only that, but he also has Tyler Reddick's number from Darlington.
Darlington, yeah. So it seems to me that the dirt guys, other than Bell, no, never mind Bell and Bush, but I think they must have figured it out because I mean, former team owner. So, but mainly Reddick and Larson, the two dirt guys who are known for sending it a lot and you know, slide job and doing everything they can to win. But
It's just like a
seems
Ross
they might be
Chastain
making enemies.
situation.
Yeah, and Ross has cleaned it up for sure. But you still see a couple of tendencies, but I mean, it's kind of become a more prominent factor in Reddick and Larson's game now. They just decide to do whatever they can to win, and I'm not bashing them for it, but I definitely think they could handle it differently because come crunch time, you're going to need help.
Part of me,
It's just
mean,
like what
there's a
McLaren
time.
emotionally. We'll talk about that later.
guys,
But it's just like how McLaren was abusing Lando Norris
I
that you
think
can't win a championship alone, and that's true. You can't.
I think this is kind of, in a way, Larson and Reddick being late to the party with figuring out this next gen and how it races. Yes, they were fast and competitive the first 2 years of the next gen, but if you think about it, the thing I have going on right now is Ross Chastain was the most aggressive driver the first 2 years next gen. This year he's kind of tapered off his aggression. However, Larson and Reddick have up the ante with their aggression and everything. So I wonder if like something just switched between some of these drivers where it's like, okay, well, you know what? If I can't pass them clean, I'm just gonna, shove them out the way, regardless of what track it is.
And I
Yeah.
wonder if that's just a product of the next gen car and the way the aero packages have been. Because honestly, though, if you look at it, being aggressive is kind of the way you have to be in order to produce results. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like Ross Chastain hasn't produced as well, not being
Yeah,
as aggressive.
and it's super ironic because we remember Hendrick talking about, oh, I'm gonna have a talk with Ross and tell him not to stop crashing my cars. Well,
Yeah.
it looks like everybody's doing that now. So
And
maybe it's not really a Ross problem anymore.
I also find it funny that also Denny, like the first couple of years of the next gen, he was getting a ton of backlash because of how aggressive he was being with, especially Pocono, the two incidences with Chastain and Larson. But it's like at the end of the day, you got to understand that's what you kind of have to do to be able to
Well,
win a
Pocono was
race.
deserved. As a person who likes Ross, Pocono was deserved. But
22
the
Pocono
Larson
was
one,
It's
yes.
just
The Larson
Larson's
one counts, yeah.
understandable because it's hard racing, but at the same time, the definition of hard racing has changed with this next gen car. So hard racing nowadays is like you literally have to run someone up out of the groove, like physically move them out of the groove, or just air
Make
block
them
them.
lift.
Yeah, make
Just
them
make
lift,
them lift.
or just air block them. That's hard racing with this next gen car now.
and
Yeah.
and the thing is though is that we shouldn't have to rely on the aero package to produce great racing, and I think that's a problem that still needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh
hell,
yeah,
we
for
even
sure.
saw the Xfinity race at Indy actually be way better than what any of
Cup race
the
was.
550 horsepower packages would have
And I
done in
think
2019,
Yeah.
2020.
and I think
Yeah.
that's a thing too, is that we gotta start looking at like The Xfinity Series hasn't had really any changes to their cars, and they're producing arguably the best racing week in and week out.
Yeah, I mean,
Besides the 2 close finishes in Cup this year, but I mean,
if you think about
besides
it,
Which
that,
were not really
Xfinity,
spectacular either.
yeah,
It was only the finish that
no.
was
if you think
pretty
about
good.
And the
it,
thing is,
the Xfinity cars haven't changed since 2010 for the most part. They're still the COT bodies.
so then
Yeah.
what can the Cup Series side do, taking notes from the Xfinity Series? How can they take those notes and try to make the racing more
I
exciting?
have a great answer
You
for
you
this. You
you.
use the Xfinity cars and put 1,000 horsepower in it. Done.
I was gonna say you take this car and take it somewhere else. That's all you gotta do. Just don't just get rid of this car to get altogether. This car was
Yeah,
doomed
if
from
they
its inception back in
and
2021.
people will say, "Oh, we wanted this car because it gives all teams a chance." Hey, bro, if you give these teams an Xfinity Series template, they'll all do great.
Yeah.
It's affordable, it's easy to build, and it'll
Hmm.
bring that stock car vibe back instead of a spec series
I
vibe.
mean, we've been saying it outside of this podcast for the past year and a half. And everyone on Twitter has been saying it past year and a half
Yeah.
that Xfinity is the premier series of NASCAR. It's
Oh,
not the
I don't
Cup
think
Series
it's a year
anymore.
and a half. I don't think it's a year and a half. I
It's
think
been
it's been
past
this
three,
way
four
for like,
years.
Well,
yeah.
I
Three,
feel like
4 years.
it's really picked up steam though with the next gen not doing
Oh yeah, ever
as
since
they're
the
I'm
next
just
expecting.
gen
saying,
came in.
there's a reason why Cup guys keep going back down to Xfinity at certain
Because
tracks.
it's fun. It's
Yeah.
actually fun to drive, and it actually
And they don't
takes
care about
driver
winning.
skill.
And
Yeah,
they
no,
don't
they
care
don't.
about winning. They just want to have fun.
And the one thing that I'll end this conversation on is that what Denny has done a great job explaining about the difference between Xfinity and Cup cars is that you can manipulate the car in front of you using your front end with the Xfinity car. With the Cup car, you can manipulate the car behind you with your rear end by placing your car in front of their front end and creating dirty air and making them lift. With the Xfinity car, you get on their left rear or on the bumper at all.
Just like Gen 6.
It gets them loose. It packs air on the left rear spoiler in the corner, and takes the air out of underneath the car and just pretty much gets them loose, but without even touching them. And so that's why
Yeah.
you see such amazing racing at times
Yeah.
on mile and a half, especially.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
and
will
you
say
don't
one
see.
thing. I will say one thing real quick. If we do get the Xfinity cars, put more horsepower in it, the great thing is when Xfinity guys come up to Cup, they won't struggle as much and we'll actually see their raw talent.
That's a very good
Because
point. Yeah.
if the cars are similar, just like how they were back in the day, it'll actually mean something.
That's why I feel like today it's better off to just skip the Xfinity series
Yeah,
altogether.
truck to Cup because they
Yeah,
have the same arrow.
that's exactly what I was gonna say. It's like
Yeah.
they both have the same formula of racing. It's just like it's error blocking, and so it's just very
Yeah.
similar. Just trucks are just a lot more slower, but you get the gist. It's just arrow
Yeah.
blocking.
Pretty much similar. But anyways, let's move on because we were going to be talking about that for like at least another 13 hours, 46 minutes, and 3 seconds. Knowing us. But we have some news. NASCAR Cup Series teams will have the option to put lifters on the rear dampers, basically shock absorbers, of their cars beginning at Michigan. So this would allow cars to be raised up by a few inches and they would be towed safely back to the pits. This reduces some problems that have always hindered the next gen car with the flat tires and the rims and all sorts of stuff going on. Dragon and Joey Logano getting hella pissed at Pocono last year. That was a great meme that Bubba Wallace did. And speaking of Bubba Wallace, I'm on a roll today. He had another top 5, so he's also on a roll. Can he make the playoffs without a win? This has been a question that everybody's been asking. Can he do it without a win? The next few tracks, barring Richmond, or actually no, he's okay at Richmond. I'd say Darlington is worse for him. But Michigan and Daytona are right there for him for the taking. But could he make the playoffs without a win?
He can. It's going to be like a Daniel Dye situation, which is exactly what this appears to be. he's right there on the cusp of making the playoffs and the top 16. It's just a matter of, like, those bigger tracks, he's got to keep his car clean, and he's got to qualify well. And I feel like, one of the biggest problems Bubba has this year is just qualifying in a position where he can maintain top 5, top 10 finishes. Once his car gets up to speed and, during the races, he has the speed to get up there and contend for top 10s, top 5s. But imagine what he could do if he was actually starting towards the front instead of mid-pack.
Yeah, and I feel that has been a problem at almost every single racetrack we go to, barring I think Nashville. He had a good qualifying time there, and some of the 1-milers, but everywhere else it just seems like it just doesn't work. And I don't know if it's the crew chief, Booty Barker, not setting up the car for him correctly, or if it's Bubba's not going to his full potential in qualifying. But I will say this, I listen to the radios whenever the drivers qualify. Whenever Bubba qualifies good, he says, this car feels great. And whenever he doesn't qualify good, he says, why is this completely different than practice? So, food for thought. Maybe if Bubba doesn't make the playoffs this year, might be time for a crew chief change. I know Booty's been helping build that team up since Wheels left it for a higher role in the 2311 organization that first year. But it's gonna be interesting to see. Max, I'll ask you. We know Richmond and Darlington will be tough on Bubba for a bit. But I do think Michigan and Daytona are most likely his best shots at getting a win. Would you rather him win at Michigan or Daytona? If he were to win, what do you think would be his best shot?
Realistically, Daytona, just because ever since he ran the Daytona 500 in his rookie year, 2018, he has been the guy to kind of look out for in each race. He's been one of those drivers that's been, right up there, right in the mix to where he could potentially steal a race win away from some of these guys that are still in the top 16. And he even got his first win at Talladega, albeit it was rain shortened race, but still he put himself in position to win that race. And ever since the next gen car came around, he still has been really good at these plate races and been consistent. The most importantly,
Without Toyota imploding.
yeah, I was gonna say excluding Talladega this year.
Yeah.
I will say if that doesn't happen, Bubba probably gets another top 5, top 10 finish on another plate race. But that's besides the fact. I think Bubba can realistically win Daytona, but it's tough to really say anything about if he can win Michigan. We know he's ran consistent there as well in the past 2 seasons in the next gen there.
His similarity to Kansas, just bigger, but
it's just my issue is I'm used to having 2 Michigan races a year and being able to see who's going to be fast in the second race based off of the first spring race or spring/summer race. Because it was kind of like Pocono, they would race 2 separate dates relatively close to one another, but without that first race date for Michigan and not having 2 dates in the season, it's kind of hard to really know
it's a
who's
toss
gonna
up.
be who's gonna be good and who's not. I mean, like, take example last year, Truex, Reddick, and Buescher were the top 3 fastest guys, and
Well,
easily
until 2311 pit crew struck.
any 3 of them could have won that race. And it became an error blocking situation last year, and Chris Buescher was able to win that. So, I mean, if Bubba's in that position where he's leading late, he's probably going to be able to drive that car into victory lane just because of how these cars are and with error blocking nowadays. If he's if he's out front, 5 to go, 10 to go, late restart, he can probably win that thing.
Yeah. And I will say, Chris Buescher, another person we'll talk about next week as we get closer to the return of Carnage in NASCAR. But Yeah, well, we got a lot to talk about next week with the option tire. That's going to be a fun discussion. But yeah, moving on for more 2311 news. Can 2311 and Tyler Reddick keep up the consistency that they're having this year? I'll start it off by saying this has come as a surprise, but also not a surprise. I like we all had expectations for Reddick and how he would do in 2311. It's been what 2 years since he signed now, almost to the day. Um, before everything happened with Kurt Busch, but yeah, I mean, if you look at his past, uh, 5, 10 races, his worst finish was in Iowa because he had what was it, a pit road penalty or something? He had a pit road issue of some sort. But he's barring that, the past let's see, 4, 6, 8, 9 races, he has had 8 top 10s, and he's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 top 5s, and 2 second place finishes. So can Reddick keep this consistency up? Get rid of those mistakes that he's made at, of course, Darlington and other tracks, Kansas too. Can he get rid of those bad finishes and keep up the consistency? Rob, what do you think?
I definitely think that we're in a situation where you see all these openings for the Cup Series. We talk about 23XI has got another driver that's coming in next year. We have Spire having an open ride. We have Front Row having an open ride, and Tyler Reddick has been doing better at 23XI than a lot of people expected. A lot of people thought, him moving from RCR to 23XI would have been a bad move for his career, but it turned out to be quite the opposite. I think we're at a point now where, it's kind of, Reddick's proven to be a top 4, top 8 guy in championship contention. I think more so the question is Bubba the one that needs to work on consistency? Is he the one that 23XI probably needs to put more of their focus to? I think you can just leave the 45 team alone and just let them do their own thing. I would put all of my energy into making sure you have your other car get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I do think Bubba's team needs the most amount of help right now. I'm hoping, if you're a Bubba fan, you better be hoping and praying that Ty Gibbs is in a good points position, as well as Martin Truex, so that the Toyota guys can possibly help out Bubba get into the playoffs. We know I'm a Legacy fan. We know the Legacy cars are not going to be a factor this year, as they build their program. But 2311, they need to get that 23 car in the playoffs. They
Well,
really need
speaking
to.
of
Last year he had a good run, but yeah, yeah, correct. Speaking of 2311, again, we're on a three-peat. Call us Jordan. Did Jordan have a three-peat? I think he did.
oh my god. Oh my god.
I'm just trying to make good transitions, man. Good transitions. But yeah, Juan Pablo Montoya will be racing the number 50 car at Watkins Glen.
Mr. Jit
For
Jar
the
himself.
first time in a
Nah,
Oh,
decade
I'm
there it
sorry.
that he'll be
is.
back in the
I'm
sport.
sorry. Yeah,
There it
I've seen
is.
it all
There
over
it is.
Twitter, and I even seen one person just tell out all the people making that jokes like, bro, it's been over 10 years since that happened. Just let it go. I don't think NASCAR
Yeah.
fan base is ever gonna let that go.
No,
No.
no, they won't. That's the NASCAR fan base. We're all
Just like how Kyle Larson won't let go of that golden horseshoe he got from Jimmy Johnson.
oh, whoa, whoa, it's actually Jeff Gordon. Anyways, that's a debate for another day.
But yes, Juan Pablo Montoya returning at Watkins Glen. It'll be the first time in a decade that he'll step foot into a NASCAR Cup Series car.
Yeah,
Obviously, we
2014,
know
wasn't it?
his.
He had
Yep,
2014 last time I think it was
last season.
Michigan
No,
2014
I
12
thought it
car.
was Indy. Was it Indy?
Let's see.
All right, we got our fact checkers here. 100% fact checked by American Patriots.
Yeah, Brickyard 400. You're right. Michigan must have been
Uh,
Blaney then.
yeah,
I
because he had
remember,
the
yeah.
SKF car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yes, Juan Pablo Montoya back for the first time in a decade at Watkins Glen, the track that he's won at previously. However, this will be his first chance to get behind the wheel of the next gen car. So the question is, with Juan Pablo Montoya's, various experience in motorsports and, being a multiple time road course winner in NASCAR, does he have a good shot to win that race at the Glen?
Oh,
I
it's
think if this car came around 7 years ago, he probably
Yes.
would have he probably would be in a way better position to win. I feel like he's
Yeah.
too old to really be competitive. I could be dead wrong and he still has a lot left in him that we don't know. But I feel like if this type of car came out in like 2015 or something like that, for an example, 2 years after he had retired,
and the schedule,
yeah, and the schedule,
he would definitely
yeah,
do a lot.
yeah, he would at least be getting top fives every road course this season. But it's been 11 years since he's last been in a cup car, and a lot of things have changed. Horsepower has changed, gearing has changed, and the handling of these cars have changed a lot.
His hairline has changed.
The gearing actually might be a benefit to him since he went back to IndyCar.
Yeah.
IndyCar has more
guess.
gears.
But I feel like
because he does a lot of GT3, GT4,
I was gonna
and
say
LMP2
I was
racing.
gonna bring up his endurance.
We're never
racing
beating
background.
the allegations. It's over. It's over. We're never beating the allegations.
I was literally about to say that, barring
Juan Pablo over.
with his endurance racing background, that could help him. But the thing is, it's all paddle shifting over there. It's never with like a shifter that they have in the cup car right now. But I mean, give him some time. I think Watkins Glen's not until September, one of the first races in the playoffs. So
yeah,
he's got time,
and I'm sure
he's got a lot of
like
simulation
I said,
time
they had
to work on.
And not to mention, he could probably work with like Corey Heim, for example, because he's been in that 50 car a few times.
Yeah.
So I imagine he'll probably be working with some guys in the shop.
And Kamui.
With Corey Heim. Yeah.
Well, Kamui's busy doing WEC.
Well, yeah, but Kamui was in there for Coda, I believe.
Oh yeah, he will completely inject Juan Pablo with his wisdom.
Oh yeah.
And
the next gen car.
And speaking of former NASCAR drivers making their re-debuts this season, we got Greg Biffle coming back as well.
In the Sigma car.
So Greg Biffle will be returning to stock car racing in ARCA, which was quite the surprise because
ARCA West, I believe.
A lot of people thought that it was Biffle that was going to be behind the 50, not Juan Pablo. They thought it was going to be. They thought it was going to be a little switcheroo.
Yeah, but I mean, hey Rob, when we saw that hairline, we knew.
But it did not help
man.
that Greg Biffle teased on Facebook last night that he had an announcement to make earlier today.
Tricon
and
Garage.
he definitely fed into it.
Tricon Garage did a great job at pleading their case that it was David Gilliland that was going to be driving the 50 car. That's what I saw. Dude, imagine the scenes if David Gilliland made a comeback.
Hey, man. David and Todd racing together in the Cup Series is a dream that we can
would
actually
get
the pedigree schemes back.
Yep, that would
Puppy and the dog.
Perfect.
But I'm gonna channel my Billy Mays here because wait, there's more. We've got another debut coming up. Connor Hall in the Truck Series is a thing that's gonna happen. Connor Hall is gonna make his debut at Richmond. Currently the points leader in the Z-Max Cars Tour for the late models and the Virginia Triple Crown points leader. And he's also no stranger to NASCAR, the defending weekly series champion. How does that fare for his chances to run well at Richmond?
What team is he racing with again? It's
the 91.
91? Yeah, well. That one's going to be interesting just because of, I'm going
to say I'll give him a top 10 expectation. Top 10 for Richmond based on his accolades.
Yeah, because he'll do similarly to Butterbean.
Yeah, it comes from
he'll do similar to Butterbean.
And it's just one of those things where a lot of those guys transition into the truck series and actually run well in their debuts. So I think there's no reason to think that Connor Hall couldn't do the same thing.
Yeah, he's actually been doing great, although with controversy in the Cars Tour. But happy for him. Hope he has fun in his debut, and I think he will do. He will do pretty similarly, if not better than Butterbean. I know this year he's been actually beating consistently Brendan and even Carson Kvapil, even though Kvapil missed I think a race here or there. But yeah, he's been consistent in the Cars Tour. He has a win, most top fives, tied for most top tens. So he may be a controversial figure at some points with his racing style, but we talked about it. You got to be aggressive in this era. You got to take whatever you can get. Speaking of taking whatever he can get, he took it all. We're talking about Ty Majeski at IRP. Your boy picked him for the win, and I am so happy he finally got a win in the Road Ranger car. I got some friends at Road Ranger. They're very great people. Please come on the podcast. Sponsor us, please. But yeah, no. Ty Majeski finally wins after what, a year or something? Like I think it's been a year almost. But yeah, he finally wins. It was in pretty dominating fashion as well. Did not do a burnout. Pretty sad, but I guess they're saving it for the next short track race.
Little Mark Martin.
But yeah, and former Ryan Blaney, but Ryan Blaney does burnouts now, so he doesn't have that anymore. But yeah, he finally won in the Truck Series again, and is it now time that we call him a championship threat? Because he did the same thing in 2022 where he won and he just got in his bag and started ripping off wins. So what do y'all think he can do? Max, I'll start with you. What do you think? How do you think Ty will do in the championship this year?
I don't know. I haven't really paid much attention to Majeski in the Truck Series, honestly. I feel like his results have been very mixed, very inconsistent. And if I'm being honest, since I don't pay much attention to Majeski, I feel like this win seems like a fluke right now. I know it was because like he had better strategy and everything, but like
Oh
I
no,
don't
no,
know.
yeah, I can tell you. I can tell you it was not strategy. It's Ty
Okay.
Majeski at IRP because that is like his playground
I
apparently.
I didn't watch the race, so I have no idea how he got the lead in the win, but um I it's hard to tell for me personally because it's literally the first race before this Olympic break, and everyone's on a break, and it's gonna take a minute for him to, I guess, get back into the groove. Considering going back to another short track at Richmond, I have a hard time seeing him as a championship threat now that he's just now beginning to win and show more consistency. I don't see him getting to the championship finale. I see him getting to like the second to last round at least.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Just for reference, stage one he led most of the laps and then pit early, and then came from last to P3 in stage two, and then went ahead and won the race by a chunk there. Yeah, I think he can be a championship threat if he really turns it on, say at Richmond and then eventually Homestead, which is the round before the final round. And yeah, I think I mean, what next few races are Richmond, Milwaukee, and Bristol, and those are all short tracks. And Ty Majeski is a serial short track racer, so if he might be able to turn it up. I don't know. I think he could, but it's going to be difficult because ThorSport just has not had speed this year. You can tell with Ben Rhodes and how he's almost out of the playoffs that ThorSport doesn't have speed this year. But contrary to not having speed, Riley Herbst had the most speed in Indy at the Brickyard, almost losing it in entering turn 4, but somehow hanging on with that Baja mentality that he has from racing those off-road trucks. He got door slammed a little bit by Almirola. It was not intentional, just good hard racing, but Riley Herbst clutched up. he went toe to toe with last year's Xfinity champion, his teammate Cole Custer. Went against Eric Almirola, former Cup driver, Cup winner, P5 in the standings in 2018, and in a JGR car. And Almirola almost found himself stealing one at the Brickyard after the first race, I think, after his team suspension was lifted. But yeah, it was a very impressive win for Riley. And this does beg the question, and I'll pose this question to you, Rob. Does this clutch performance by Riley Herbst help him in securing a cup ride next year? And would it be, we know money has a big part to play in it, but does this kind of make it appear that, hey, he has a winning factor? We know a lot of guys don't, have success in the Xfinity Series and then they just go up in Cup and start lighting the place on fire. But does this somewhat prove that he can do it? He has talent and that he can maybe prove himself in the Cup Series.
I think with Riley Herbst, and Brandon Jones were kind of lumped into the same category for a while of guys, in the Xfinity Series that had these great opportunities with these big teams like Brandon Jones currently does with Junior Motorsports, and Riley Herbst with Stuart Haas. With them being brought in to run those cars, and a lot of it, like you said, had to do with sponsorship money. And now they've won multiple races, and Brandon Jones, I still in his case, I still think a lot of why he's in a top tier ride in the Xfinity Series is because of money. I can't really
because there's
think of
been no improvement over the span of a
I mean,
year or
I
two.
can't think of a race that Brandon Jones has won where it didn't seem like a Mickey Mouse win. And I don't like
Yeah.
to use that term, but I'm gonna be honest. Brandon Jones definitely lucked his way in all of his wins in the Xfinity Series, but Riley Herbst hasn't. And the last 2 years, I mean, Riley Herbst has improved tremendously. And I'm glad that he's kind of broken the narrative of just being another mid-tier driver in a top-tier ride because of sponsorship or because of money. I think Riley Herbst is absolutely deserving of a Cup ride. I think he absolutely deserves to be in that third seat for 23XI next season, even if it's just on a 1 or 2 year basis until they can get somebody else developed or maybe another driver that maybe has a contract expiring in the Cup Series to come over. But I think with him being able to have seasons where he's had multiple wins, him being a championship contender now, I mean, I think he's done enough to earn that ride. And some people may disagree. And I'll just tell them maybe you're not watching the same product as I am. I don't know how you can sit there and say that him and Brandon Jones are on the same level anymore because they're clearly not. I think Herbst he's still developing.
He's still a project.
Yeah, but the talent is there. You can see the talent, and it's starting to develop. It's not just raw anymore. You're starting to see some of the fine tuning. And I think he's at the point now where he can't do too much more in Xfinity besides win a title. So I think it's best to bring him up into the Cup Series now.
Yeah.
And what other place makes sense than 23XI? I mean, the Monster sponsorship is there. I mean, he's going to be in a top tier Toyota team. He's going to have that alliance with Joe Gibbs. I mean, I think it's a perfect situation, and I think it's the next logical step on his NASCAR journey. I kind of think 23XI would kind of be silly to go after anybody else and Xfinity truck right now.
Yeah, I think that the Xfinity OS that Riley Herbst has shown in the past 2 years and a pretty much dying Stuart Haas racing team this year because Cole Custer only won, what, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago? and now Riley Herbst won. They went back to back. So
And Custer
I
was on
think
his way to winning last week too.
yeah, and then Riley just turned on the Jets, and it was insane to see. And I also agree that hey, Jimmy Johnson only won one Xfinity race before going to Cup, and look how he turned out. I'm not saying Riley Herbst is Jimmy Johnson, but hell, Tony Stewart, the same thing. He didn't do um, great in the Xfinity series, but got to Cup. He started doing
He
his
didn't
thing.
even do full time in Xfinity, and that's the crazy part with Stewart's case was he wasn't full time in Xfinity. He went
Yeah,
to pretty much from IndyCar straight to NASCAR Cup Series.
yeah. So I think he deserves a shot. Give him 2 years. Prove it, deal. Let him cook. Let him try and get that third 2311 team sorted. And yeah, if that doesn't work, you have Corey Heim right there. We don't know how longer he'll wait, but he'll be there because he doesn't have much sponsorship right now. So I think you just bring Riley up. I will ask the 2311 stan here, Max. What's your opinion on Riley Hurst maybe proving himself for a 2311 ride?
I mean, I think all you need to know is what Denny Hamlin said right after the race finish. Impressive, just one word, and I think that's all we really need to know on if Herbst is going to get a Cup ride or deserves a Cup ride. I mean, if Hamlin thinks so, and he's part owner of that race team, then I'm pretty sure he's got that seat sealed up. There's nothing really much I can really say to really go against that or anything. I mean, Riley's shown that he's got speed, he can win races, and hell, if he can win this championship, that's even more on his resume as to why he's more deserving of this ride at 2311.
And who's to say that
Yeah.
he doesn't get an opportunity in the 50 car before the season's up?
Well, I do think 2311 said this was the final ride for the 50, so hey, they might bring back the 67 for a race or two, like how they did last year. But speaking of six and sevens, how many seasons has LaJoy had at the
4.
pinnacle of NASCAR? He's had
Well,
four,
4 with Spire. 4 with Spire.
four with Spire, and then I think
I
he
think
had two with LaJoy.
2017
So
he started.
7.
Oh,
He's in
okay.
his 7th year.
He started
Seventh year?
2017, yeah.
Damn, I
7th year
was.
for the number 7.
Oh, damn, I was one year
You're
off. I was trying to
one.
do a 6-7 transition, but
You're
anyways,
right there.
Well,
um,
7, 8, 9.
yeah, and Spire definitely ate up LaJoy's contract and said bye bye. They dropped him for next year. Rodney does not have a driver to crew chief yet, and I think we saw this coming after the Kyle Busch incident with Corey LaJoy. Um, look, Hocevar has been outrunning him all year, and now Zane Smith, after not giving start and park equipment, has been outperforming LaJoy. Hey, great dude to meet at the track. Super friendly, but it just didn't work out with Spire. He definitely helped build that team up, but he hasn't been able to reap the rewards of it. And yeah, we're gonna leave that at that. You know, uh, LaJoy, I think he'll definitely find a ride at least in the top three series. I don't think it'll be Cup, but we'll see with that. But more importantly, who will replace him in the number 7? I'm gonna leave this open to y'all two to discuss here. I have my reservations that it should be Kyle Busch, but I don't think Kyle Busch is leaving RCR because of the contract. So I believe it should be Sam Mayer. That's the next dude up. So, but I'm gonna leave it open to y'all. What do y'all think?
Uh,
So, go ahead, Max. I'll let you start off.
Let me first start off by saying I think Corey LaJoy is going to find a ride next year, but it's going to be a ride in the broadcast booth. I don't see him getting an actual ride next year.
I don't. I mean,
Based on
let's
his
see.
records, I don't think he's really worthy of a Cup ride anymore. He's been in low tier equipment ever since he started in 2017, and 2020 is when things started to really look good for him. Inspire, and then 22 was probably his best season to win a race, and still didn't. And he's probably had a couple more at least a dozen, if not a handful more opportunities since 2022 to be a top 5, top 10 finish or a win, and he still hasn't done it. I just don't think that LaJoy really deserves a cup ride next season.
I mean, I can agree with him maybe not deserving a cup ride, but you can't tell me that he's going to go straight to the broadcast booth.
Oh no, I'm just saying.
I think
saying
it's
that
a
for
Matt
placeholder.
DiBenedetto situation.
Yeah,
I think it's a Matt DiBenedetto situation.
I just said
I
the
think
whole
he'll get a ride in the
broadcasting.
Truck Series probably.
I said the whole broadcasting just for like a sentence filler. I didn't really have anything to really say that was going to happen, but it was just like an example.
He's going to get a ride on his couch, is what he's trying to say. No,
There
I'm
you go.
kidding.
Yeah, that was a better analogy. But
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to RSS or something. They could probably work out a deal with him and his sponsors, get DiBenedetto and LaJoy on one team.
yeah,
Based on their history, it would make
I
sense.
mean, that
team
15
of
AM
washed
racing car needs
drivers.
a ride.
Yeah, AM Racing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. He could go to AM Racing.
Oh yeah, AM Racing. Yeah, yeah, that's actually a good shout.
I think
that would be interesting.
For Cup,
Hell, Jordan Anderson. Hello, Jordan Anderson
Mm,
taking washed drivers and except for Parker Retzloff, my
Retzloff is
Pookie.
not washed.
Retzloff is goated. Retzloff is goated. We do not
Um,
include you, Pookie.
I don't know who can replace him. I don't really know who's really up in the air to be potential replacement.
I mean, we all mentioned Kyle Busch, but I'm going to mention off two names that you wouldn't expect me or really anybody else to really say. First one I'm going to mention is Suarez.
Mm,
Daniel Suarez, I mean, because they haven't necessarily. Obviously, Trackhouse and Suarez want to get a deal together, and obviously it's supposed to be coming, and I imagine it'll probably be announced soon, but I mean, if the opportunity's there for Suarez to be the number one guy at a race team, I mean, why wouldn't you take the opportunity to go for it?
I mean, I'm looking at his past statement from back in June that Fox Sports did a piece on. And the headline says Daniel Suarez on contract talks, wouldn't trade Trackhouse for any other team. So I don't think.
I mean,
Yeah, and
Suarez is
Justin
going
did say that he will be a Trackhouse driver.
Yeah, I don't think Suarez is going anywhere outside of Trackhouse.
But I mean, we've seen weirder things happen, and not just in NASCAR but sports. You know, you talk about people that say, "Hey, I want to be here for the rest of my life," or "This is a team I see myself being with." And
Alex
then,
Palou, anyone?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like shit hits the fan. There's like no other better way to explain it. Shit hits the fan, and things come up. You know, maybe Spire makes an offer to Suarez that he can't turn down, and then that ends up that other ride goes to Zane Smith, and he ends up, they swap rides, because then again Zane Smith is on loan to Spire from Trackhouse. So could we see a driver swap? That's a possibility.
It could, but I do think the most likely is Zane Smith stays and then Suarez stays as well. But yeah, it could happen that it's a switch. But what's your second choice here, Rob?
This is going to come as a shock, but we talked about him just a minute ago. Bubba Wallace.
Oh,
I know it's an out of field thing, but I mean,
that's really out there.
Think about it though. I mean, if 23XI decides, hey, we want to get Corey Heim and Riley Herbst, what if they want to move both of those guys in the 23XI? Reddick wouldn't be the odd guy out. Reddick's the best driver for that team.
Yeah, but at the same time, 2311 was based or has been formed around Bubba. He was their first driver. I don't think that they're just gonna give Bubba the boot because they got a hot new prospect waiting in the wings. They got they got two hot new prospects.
We also said that Kyle Busch wouldn't be getting the boot from RCR, but we hear more and more about it.
Well, he's giving himself the boot.
Well, yeah, I was about to say Kyle Busch is kind of just booting himself.
I do not see Bubba leaving 2311 for the rest of his career.
It's like Suarez and Trackhouse.
They
help build a team.
Yeah,
there's
no way. There's no way those two drivers are leaving those teams because
unlike LaJoy, they've actually won with their teams.
Yeah, it's like if they go to Spire, it's a massive downgrade compared to what they're at right now. Because
I don't know. I don't know if Trackhouse is too much of a downgrade from Spire.
Honestly, at least in Bubba's case, 2311 is, almost top tier. I think it is top tier Toyota equipment.
Yeah, tier one,
Spire,
tier one.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
Spire
Suarez tier
is
2.
yeah tier. So that's a big downgrade for Suarez because it's like, I mean, you just gotta take the average of finishing positions with Hocevar and Zane Smith to really truly see the actual speed from that whole organization.
But my thing is that does Spire want to try to buy out Zane Smith's contract? Is the money worth
I
buying out Zane Smith?
I don't think so. I think they've
I
lost
mean,
too
because if
much
you
with
do,
LaJoy.
I mean, if you do a driver swap like that, then I mean, Trackhouse gets Zane Smith and Suarez gets the thing, and it's a year thing, and then you can reevaluate at the end of the year,
I
at the end of
think
2025.
I think they're just going to close down the 7 team after this season. I think they're just going to close shop and just focus on 2 cars. I feel like they're stretching
Well, it
themselves
wouldn't be
too
the
thin.
7. It'd probably be the 71.
Well,
And they
yeah,
would just
but
move
they
one of them to the 7.
Yeah, because
they
then
close
they
the
just
team
move
down.
McDowell over to the 7 with Rodney. Or, yeah, they'd move
Because McDowell and
McDowell with
Rodney's probably
Rodney.
going to be, yeah, that's going to be the thing.
Yeah,
But I mean,
Yeah.
they're probably going to
there's
close
one
down
more,
one team at least.
there's one more guy that you could possibly mention, and that's Eric Jones.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
the only like relative because he had the RCR talks not long ago,
that's
and
true.
then of course RCR is RCR, and they're not doing good, so that kind of ended things. But yeah, last that I've heard, at least from sources that I have, Eric Jones is somewhat committed, but yeah, we'll never know.
I know who's going to take the 7 car next season.
Who is it?
BJ McLeod. Call me crazy, but
Get loud for McLeod.
McLeod was interviewed recently by Corley Joy.
He should.
In one
He
of
really should.
one of his segments, and I think that's it's in the writing. It's in stone. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, for sure. All right. To end our NASCAR segment, I'm gonna let Rob take this away because he is our expert on all sports. Rob, take it away.
So this is actually typically we don't talk about anything non-racing, but in this instance, this applies to our NASCAR segment this week, and it's with the NFL. The NFL has had some serious conversations, some very high-level talks of an 18-game season, which would cause the Super Bowl to take place on President's Day weekend. But as we know, President's Day weekend is reserved for the Daytona 500. So I gotta ask you guys, Max, and I'll ask you first. How much do you think, if the NFL goes to an 18-game season, how much do you think that's going to impact NASCAR?
It sounds like it's gonna play a big impact to the ratings for the 500 because if you think about it, NFL is the top echelon of sports, like in terms of viewership in America, and they're pretty much going to be the ones that have a final say in how long they decide their season's going to be and how far it goes into whatever month it is. And I feel like NASCAR is just kind of like in that situation where they have their hands kind of tied behind their backs because NFL has in a sense seniority over NASCAR. NASCAR is its own, it's its own separate entity to all other sports in America, but at the same time, Super Bowl is just way more prestigious and way more watched than the Daytona 500. It's sad to say, but it's the days of NASCAR rivaling NFL and viewership have been long gone. It's been that way for at least 2 decades at this point. And it's just it's going to be tough for NASCAR to figure out how to formulate a good schedule without getting interference from the NFL taking away their viewership, because it happens every season. Once we get into the playoffs, the NFL season starts back up, and we've seen NBC numbers. I mean, we always compare Fox and NBC, and NBC has been head and shoulders above Fox in production and everything. But even NBC is struggling with viewership towards the end of these long seasons. So I feel like, the best case scenario from what I've listened to in other podcasts is maybe just come up with a shorter season like IndyCar does, not very spread out with the races, but just make it more condensed to where it ends before the NFL starts and starts after the NFL ends. So they get their own time of the year to really focus on their broadcast stuff and make sure they get enough viewership and all that stuff rather than getting impeded by NFL.
And I agree with a lot of what you said. And Leander, I'll let you chime in here in just a second. I agree with a lot of what you said, Max. But at the same time, NASCAR has the schedule out to where their season starts right after the NFL's done, which is like premiere. Because really you don't have many sports in America going on at the time. I mean, NHL's usually pretty much wrapping up or is done by then. The NFL's done. The NBA is in the middle of their season. MLB's not around. So, I mean, that President's Day weekend start is a perfect place for NASCAR to begin their season because there's really no one to compete with. I mean, but now you're taking that weekend away. You have the Super Bowl of auto racing versus the actual Super Bowl. And it's just one of those things where it's just not going to mix well. So you have to think, do you shorten the schedule? Do you move the season up by a week? Maybe run the Daytona 500 a week before, like during the Pro Bowl events, and then have that President's Day weekend off, and then go into the rest of the schedule? Or do you just maybe move the season back a week and just do away with the Clash?
Well, so I will say there is news about, Bowman Gray obviously doing 2025, but I don't think they're going to get rid of the Clash because 2026, Brazil and Sao Paulo would like to hold the Clash at Interlagos. So I think that would be very interesting. Of course, Fox has a big part to play in this. They've seen the hate that they get for their broadcast, and deservedly so, because Fox has been declining, to be very elegant with my words, declining in the past 5 years or so with their broadcasting of NASCAR. We all know that Super Bowl is going to get priority, but I would just think that I would personally move the Daytona 500 up a week. It won't make too much of a difference. You still have time. Actually, it would make it a bit easier for fans because you'd have the Rolex and then the Daytona 500 pretty much 2 weeks after that. You could create a package thing, create a little bit more prestige for both races, and you could maybe have an off week on the Super Bowl or just run the race on a different day of the week. You could play it like that. I don't think they're going to get rid of the Clash, though. I think they're going to try and use that as a marketing ploy to get around in and around the country and, of course, the world now with the Brazil stuff. But yeah, I think logically, just move it up. I think we're in a good spot. I like what Max said with condensing the schedule, but also I don't want to be like IndyCar in that aspect because I think condensing the schedule would take a lot of good tracks away and keep some of the mid tracks with this next gen. So I would suggest keeping it how it is.
So here's what I would say about condensing the schedule. If you're going to do it, I would go back to the 32 races that they used to do.
Yeah, 32 races is okay. Yeah.
Just take away some of the tracks that have multiple dates.
Yeah, like Richmond does not need 2 dates. Richmond does not need 2 dates.
Yeah. So
and I love Richmond sometimes, but they don't need 2 days.
But yeah, just take away a couple of the tracks that have 2 days and then run a 32 race schedule. I mean, you could start the season a week later and still be done, and then you would be done by October.
Well,
instead of November, and that would give the drivers an extra month to recuperate. It gives teams an extra month to do research and gather up resources and
it covers that extra
cars.
week that extra week you'll have to use for the 500 if they move it up.
Yeah.
The thing is about removing more races is that we've seen NASCAR do this, take away dates from certain tracks and still replace it with tracks that we never really asked for. Like the Roval. I mean, we know that was gonna happen because of the terrible package we had at the time. But I mean, you look at the schedule compared to 2014. Um, was it Texas had 2 dates? Richmond still had 2 dates. Dover still had 2 dates. Michigan had 2 dates. I mean, the the season from 24 like 10 years ago, 2014 it's still just as long, if not a race or two longer than what we have now. And for the longest time, the Super Bowl, we never had to deal with this situation where the Super Bowl could potentially affect the start of the NASCAR season because I remember, we all know the Dale Earnhardt meme where it's like, uh, Super Bowl Sunday, that just means it's 3 Sundays until the Daytona 500. And that's how me personally being an old school fan, it should still be that way. It should be 3 weeks between the 500 and the Super Bowl. And obviously the NFL executives don't feel that way.
So a big thing I think about the NFL executives, with Roger Goodell as the commissioner. Past few seasons, we've seen the playoffs expand to have extra games. We've seen the season expand to have an extra game. Now they're talking about expanding the season again, and my worry more so goes to the NFL players. Like they're already having weeks of training camp and OTAs and practice and the 3 preseason games before even the regular season starts. I mean, so even if they were to expand to 18 games, like, are you going to add additional bye weeks? Are you going to reduce the off season? Like, they're getting to a point now where they're adding so much more to their schedule that they're condensing everything down, and it's just going to fatigue the players more. And we've seen it last season, if you follow football, where a lot of high profile names got hurt because of either the schedule or the wear and tear of the season. And unless you're Aaron Rodgers, then you're just stupid. But yeah, like, in my opinion, I don't think expanding the schedule, I think it's a lose-lose for the NFL players, the NFL teams, and for NASCAR. I think, Max, you mentioned it about how NASCAR's lost popularity over the past, 5-10 years. And, at one point, NASCAR was the second most watched sport in America behind the NFL, and it was like that until the mid-2000s. It's just the changes in the rules, and then with the rising stars in the NBA and MLB having more TV time than ever, it's just, what can NASCAR do? I mean, is there something that they can do marketing-wise, social media-wise? Like, what else can they do to...
That's a tough part where I genuinely don't have an answer for because I'm not really sure as to how much more they can do to help promote the Cup Series other than, during an Olympic break like this, promote all the great moments and finishes that we had this season with the next gen. And it's just such a tough situation to be in. And to your point, when you're talking about like how NASCAR, fell out of popularity and everything in the past decade and a half, because of all the other sports becoming more interesting with all the new talents and everything and all the, rising stars. The issue that NASCAR is still dealing with from a decade and a half ago is changing things too quickly in such a short amount of time. I feel like the first issue they really had was obviously the well documented the COT era, and the constant changing of the chase format at that time, because it seemed like every year they came out with a different format, different points allocation, and 2014 with the new elimination style playoff format, we all know how well that did, just for drama and everything. But their lust for drama and attention and entertainment has really blinded them from and led them astray from what the real roots of NASCAR being, which is the entertainment is racing, not the stages, not the playoff format, not the championship four, and last 5 second shot at the NBA Finals type of deal that Brian France based this sport on now, and since 2014, and that's hard to recover from, because if I'm being honest, I don't think NASCAR is willing to reinvent itself. They've done it multiple times, and it seemed to have negative long-term effects down the road. And no matter what they do, it seems to have backfired them one way or another. And that's why I'm saying it's like I don't have a good answer for how NASCAR can go about towards the future to try and get themselves back into mainstream media, back into the viewership that rivaled the NFL back in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where, we talk about the Brian France era, that NASCAR/Sprint Cup era, where, there was a lot of good ideas. And, like the chase format was a good idea, but every 2 or 3 years you would tweak it and tweak it and tweak it. And it became ridiculous. And it kind of saturated, the sport. It kind of just took away, the consistency.
And the
drivers,
prestige.
That's what I'm saying. We shouldn't have situations where guys like Matt Crafton and Austin Dillon can go win a championship without winning a race. We shouldn't have a situation where Daniel Hemrick sneaks his way into the championship four and wins the last race of the season and wins the title. Like, obviously, we haven't had something like that happen in Cup. I mean, unless you want to argue the Ryan Blaney championship last year.
Well, the closest thing we've ever gotten to that was Ryan Newman 2014, where he never won a single race. Got within at least 1,000 feet from passing Harvick for the championship in 2014. But I like what you're saying, because a really good comparison I've always wanted to talk about was the illegitimate. I don't know what the word is. The
illegitimacy.
Yeah, whatever you said. How unjust it seems that these guys get championships in the Cup Series and Xfinity Series, Truck Series now, compared to the other series of motorsports, IndyCar, F1, IMSA. I mean, all motocross, anything that has wheels and an engine, all have a season-long format to where it rewards the best consistent driver week in and week out throughout the entire season. And the issue with NASCAR is that you can have, like what Rob just said, you could have Crafton, Austin Dillon, Ryan Newman, drivers who don't win a single race in the entire season, point their way in to a Final Four moment and steal a championship, and can be completely undeserving, but at the same time deserving of it, because in this format, they're able to still cheat the system and point their way and be consistent enough to where they can still win the championship without a win. And that's the whole loophole of this elimination style format. It's just F1 proves it time and time again, even though it gets boring to watch sometimes, that the fastest car, fastest driver, week in, week out, wins the championship. We've seen it literally the past decade, from 2014 to literally this year. The best team, best drivers.
I'd say IndyCar is a better example.
Well, yeah. I mean, F1 and IndyCar are very similar in terms of their format. I mean, the points are slightly different, but at the same time, they're a lot more respectable to acknowledge their champions, because it's a lot more legitimate way to win a championship, and that's where I feel like NASCAR kind of loses its its legitimacy
Yeah.
and its what's the word, credibility in this
And I
Yeah.
think,
situation.
and the funniest thing is that they can keep the playoffs and they can keep the elimination format. You want to know what the simple fix is?
Bring back the old
Just
chase.
no, you don't even have to do that. Just get rid of the when you're in. Just
Yeah.
make it the top 16
Make it
guys,
the 2
minimum
wild cards,
points.
just like how it was back in the day.
No, it don't even have to be that. It's just I would say reduce the amount of guys that have a chance to win at when you have your cutoff. So I mean, if you want to do 16, that's fine because it can work with 16. We'll stick with 16 for this example. But the 16 most consistent guys based off of points race for a title. And then you can still have your elimination races. It's just that it would be with consistency with points. And then the last race of the season, that can be a winner take all. I understand that for the last race of the season. But every other race, every other round of 16, round of 12, round of 8, you got to point your way in. You can't just win and move on. I think that's a cop out. I think it's just used for a ratings boost to say, well, anybody can compete for a championship. And some people aren't going to like it, but that's not the way it should be. If
Yeah,
you're
I
not
agree.
I'm gonna
if
wrap
you're
it
not
up.
the most consistent guy,
I'm gonna wrap it up real quick. Um, the last thing I want to talk about, just to touch on, is what we've seen the past couple years. Is I forget what Instagram or Twitter account does it, but uh, they calculate, or they put a graphic on in the Winston Cup format of current point standings, and what NASCAR can literally do is obviously do away with their current format, but bring back the old Winston Cup format. And with how this next gen car is, and how the racing is, and how inconsistent these drivers can be, we've seen the last couple years that it could actually be a very entertaining end to a season with a season long format, because of how inconsistent drivers can be at times, which therefore brings more tight championship battles when it comes to literally 10, 20 points of winning a championship if it was in the old format. And that's where NASCAR has gone wrong, is that they thought, instead of the cars and the racing product itself bringing the entertainment, they would bring the entertainment to the racing itself instead of the other way around. So I feel like
Yeah, and I
that's
will
a good
say
way to do
there's
it.
another thing I will say. If NASCAR still wants to do a last 10 race of the season, dash with the schedule that they have now, if you really want to do that, bring back the old chase format, how it was at the beginning. But just as Rob said, you can add the every 3 races someone gets cut off. Win does not guarantee you win. You got to get points. And I think that could be a perfect marriage of the two. Um, get your bonus points for winning stage, whatever. I think you do away with stage wins or as playoff points, and you just apply playoff points to how many wins you got. Exactly how it used to be. Stage points would be important because whoever wins the championship, just like how it was back then, you get extra points. But don't make it so that everyone's a lock. Make it so that
I
some people have a little bit of an advantage. Don't make it that,
I don't think you should
someone's locked
have
in.
I don't think you should have stage racing at all. If you're going to bring back part of the old format, you just
Yeah,
bring
but I
back
mean,
points for you just.
knowing
Well,
NASCAR, they'll keep it.
the way I would do it is very simple. It's like, um, I feel like you should bring back a point for leading the lap. 5 points
Yep.
for leading the most laps, and then do what F1 does. If you win the pole, you get a point.
No, no, fastest lap,
May,
fastest lap.
w- either
IndyCar, I
or,
think you get points.
either or. I mean, I
Yeah.
think I think it would make qualifying more important, and it would make running a fast pace in the race more important.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I think we got some good ideas here. I think we could cook if we are given control of NASCAR, which will never happen because of the France.
but I
Um,
think I think it's a good
Debate to have.
episode for another time, possibly during the off season.
Yeah, for sure,
But
for sure.
with that being said, I think it's time to transition into our F1 segment. So Leander, Max, go ahead and take it away.
Alrighty, thank you, Rob, for the transition from the NASCAR section. We're actually recording the F1 section a little bit earlier than the NASCAR section, just because I gotta wake up early and head to some soccer preseason for the Premier League. So that's fun. But speaking of Premier League English, there was an English win last weekend with Lewis Hamilton winning at a Spa, but not without some controversy. But first, we have to talk about um, the importance of standing up to mental abusers, and in this case, it would be McLaren for emotionally blackmailing
Okay,
Lando Norris.
I thought you were
in
taking an
Hungary.
actual serious turn right there. I was like, damn, this got really serious all of a sudden.
I mean, if I was Lando Norris, I would reach out for help. Um, yeah, it was completely horrible. I'm not even going to talk about Hungary, like that much. But let's do a quick recap of Hungary. Lando loses the lead on the first lap again. Shocker. Piastri pulls out to a lead. Piastri gets pit early, and Lando gets on an overcut to protect against Hamilton. They keep Lando out and essentially overcut Piastri. Or sorry, they undercut Piastri. Piastri stays out for an extra 2-3 laps, and Lando gets the lead. And they ask Lando to give the place back, and Lando was like, "Shouldn't you have pulled him in first?" And he's correct, but McLaren strategists are god awful. And yeah, so they emotionally blackmailed him for the next
Oh my
30
gosh,
laps
dude. I
to try and
hated
give him the
this.
place back.
I hated this so much because you heard the engineer saying it's like, I hope you know what to do, or it's like
You know what to do. You know what the right thing.
yeah, to do the right thing, and then it says like we'll win this championship as a team. It's like the hell you won't, bro. Lando will literally win the championship if you guys don't pull this mockery.
Bullshit.
Yeah, this mockery on him,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah,
Like,
and
that's
then
so
to put the
stupid.
cherry on top, Max Verstappen kamikazes Lewis Hamilton's front nose, tries to do a Rocket League little double jump into the goal there. It was a great shot. Muskie would be proud. But yeah, no, it was insane. Verstappen was at fault for that one. He had a meltdown
I just don't.
of meltdowns.
I
It was a
just,
crazy weekend.
I just don't understand what went behind the McLaren pit wall after seeing Verstappen selling so hard at Hungary, and then deciding it's like, you know what, screw Lando Norris.
We're gonna screw ourselves.
Let's just get Piastri's first win. In the race that Norris could have ideally taken the biggest chunk out of Verstappen's lead.
Well, this is where I'll disagree with you because Piastri got the lead at the start, and he deserved it, and he was pulling away from Lando on that first stint. I think the gap was about 4-5 seconds, and he deserved to get pit priority, but they gave it to Lando. They gave it to Lando, which it should have been given to Piastri. And then as soon as Lando got in front, Piastri got into dirty air, and then that kind of ruined the race for him. I do understand the sentiment from certain McLaren fans who say if Lando would have just given the place back within 2 laps of Piastri pitting, he could have actually fought for the race win again, and he would have won it fair and square. And I can see where they're coming from, but in reality, they could have just avoided this. Piastri deserved the win, and Lando deserved the win. But Piastri has first priority on this win because he was out front. And he did not choke on the first lap. I love Lando, but he has a problem on first laps, including Hungary, including Spa as well, which we'll talk about. But
Then
yeah, it was just McLaren being stupid. I think they're even more stupid than Ferrari now.
I'm on Norris's side. I'm with him. You should have pitted Piastri first if that's the case, because
yeah, 100%. It was stupid.
Yeah.
Hamilton was not a threat. Hamilton was not a threat. But anyways, yeah.
On to Belgium. where this
Yeah,
disaster class continues.
yes. Piastri overcooked his pit there on a late call from Andrea Stella.
Almost did who was it? Was it Bottas or was it Stroll that
No,
did that once? Where he like
I believe it was Stroll in the
yeah.
Williams, wasn't it?
Yeah, it had to
Yes.
have been.
Yep, it was rookie season. He did it. I think it might have been Azerbaijan where he got the podium too, but
No, it wasn't that. It
um
had to have been a different race. I remember it.
yeah.
It wasn't
But anyways,
Baku.
yeah, Piastri choked a little bit, McLaren choked a little bit. Lando Norris again choking. He in all races this or most races this season he has not gained. This is the stat that I saw on Twitter. Lando Norris has not gained a single position on the first lap or in the first couple laps in F1 this season. And whenever he starts from pole, he usually loses first place within the first sector. So McLaren's a dumpster fire right now, and they're actually like doing well, but also like completely in shambles.
It's like that one Office meme where it's
Yes,
Steve
everybody stay
Carell.
calm.
No, well, not only that, but it's also like Steve Carell, like when he's like the intern or whatever, he's getting promoted to the CEO or whatever, or the
Oh
boss,
yeah.
and it's like McLaren's Michael in that situation, the boss, and they're like terrified. They're scared, and they have no idea what to do now with the speed. Like they have race winning speed, and they don't know what to do.
Yeah, no, it's like what do we do with this? It was like what was the year? It was like McLaren in 2021 when they had a shot to win
Oh
and they were
yeah.
just like let's do whatever we want.
That it's like when they're in race
Sochi, Russia,
when they're in contention to win a race, it's like they just
they self-sabotage.
no, they just take their brains and just throw them in the trash can and just forget about how
Oh,
to actually plan out a strategy
yeah.
correctly.
Yeah. And speaking of throwing their brains out, Mercedes. What the fuck happened? Um yeah, George Russell, beautiful racecraft by him. One stop, are you kidding me? Um Yeah, Lewis had control for most of the race. He actually had first priority, and he was telling the team that the tires were fine. He was hinting towards the one stop, but the team was adamant on two. George Russell basically forced their hand for a one stop. Um, Good old George Russell, strategy maestro.
Very
But
interesting that the driver decided what strategy they should take rather than
yeah,
let the strategist do their own job.
yeah. But I mean, hey, it worked for him until it didn't. Apparently he was 1.5 kilograms off weight.
What's
And
that converted to pounds? I'm not good with
um
the other metrics.
you put me on the spot here. Hold on. To
You should
LBS,
know. You should know.
3.3 pounds.
It's
And
quite a bit.
Mercedes say it is a mix of the plank at the bottom of the car
Yeah.
losing a little bit of weight, the tires because he used them for so
I
long
think
with
yeah,
less weight on them, less rubber, and George Russell using more exertion
fuel.
as he needed
Oh, the
for that
driver.
race. Yep, some
Uh,
water weight. So all of those are combined into
the
losing
the
3.3
the
pounds.
only thing that I really see that's actually logical in all those 3 points is the tires,
Well, no,
because
they're saying it's all three.
I know, but the only logical thing that I can get from that is the tires because um he only went to the end of he went to the pit exit because they didn't let him go all the way back around the track. They made the field go towards the end of pit exit and
Oh
go
yeah, and he
back
could
into
have
that
picked up
way.
some tire. He could have
Yeah.
picked up some tire
So
marbles and everything.
if
Yeah.
if they let him do like a full like cool down lap afterwards, he probably would have been able to pick up 3 pounds worth of tire rubber on the side of the track easily.
Yeah, and he would have had the win, but
It's just one of
yeah.
those unique situations that the track is so big that I guess F1 the FIA doesn't want him to go back around, I guess, for a cooldown lap because it'll take too long.
Yeah, no
And
wonder there's
yeah,
rumors of Spa and Zandvoort going year back to back. So say for example next year would be Zandvoort, then 26 would be Belgium, then Zandvoort, then Belgium. Yeah. whatever
So,
F1's
wait,
doing,
would that mean
crazy.
that so it'd be
Belgium would be off the schedule
yeah, that's
every
what I'm
other
trying
year.
to, yeah, okay, that was what I was trying to get at.
Yeah,
Okay.
stupid,
That
stupid.
is weird,
Anyways,
yeah.
another stupid decision in F1. Red Bull is keeping both Ricardo and Perez where they are for the rest of the year. Checo has done dog shit all year
Yeah.
and has not even been close. And just when you thought, there would be a change, Liberty Media said, no, we want ticket sales for Mexico. So Sergio Perez will be staying at Red Bull, and
Oh
Danny
yeah.
Rick will be staying at Visa Cash App OnlyFans RB. Oh wait, no, OnlyFans.
Speaking of that,
Speaking of
OnlyFans is
OnlyFans,
rumored to go to Alpine next season, which is quite ironic.
yeah.
Considering
Everybody wants to.
considering they rejected Andretti's entry for F1, and considering it's like the pinnacle of motorsports or whatever, it's like a high regarded series. Yet they're letting OnlyFans potentially to come in
They
as a
wanted to
sponsor.
see. Yeah, they wanted to see all the peen
But I wanted
from Alpine.
Yep. I wanted to bring up too, along with the Red Bull news, is that Jonathan Wheatley is leaving Red Bull after 18 years to become
And going to
Audi's
Audi.
team principal starting July of next year. So
Yeah,
it
what a
seems like
shit fest of a series
it
right now.
seems like
What is going on?
Red Bull is truly and is well on
Falling
the way
apart.
of falling apart and becoming Braun GP.
Yeah, I called it at the beginning of the podcast when we
Or
started doing
another
this.
good
Braun GP.
Another good downfall to be documented that could be related to Red Bull is McLaren's downfall from 2013 to
Yeah.
2015.
That's fair. Yeah,
It's got the potential to Red Bull becoming a midfield team again.
Yeah, and then Max Verstappen will be fucked off on World Endurance and IMSA and doing random. That's honestly what it's looking like. But hey, maybe Mercedes are like, please, Max, come to Mercedes. I told you this would happen.
I mean, I
we
joined
have
Mercedes.
a cot for you and Gios Verstappen.
I joined Mercedes if I could.
Yeah, bro. Imagine being paired with George Russell, bro. I want him to T-pose. Speaking of T-posing, silly season. Yeah, silly season
what is
T-posing
have to do with anything?
Silly season has been a T-pose of a situation.
No, that's not gonna. That doesn't work, dude.
It works. It works.
It doesn't.
You like it. You like it.
I don't. I actually really dislike it. There's no way that you can relate T-posing to a silly season update. That's.
Hey, I'll tell you who is T-posing: Esteban Ocon for getting signed by us.
Ocon doesn't T-pose. Yeah, I've never seen him. I've never seen him T-pose.
You never know.
I've never seen him.
I've seen him T-pose.
No,
that was in private.
Okay, no.
Okay.
No.
Anyways, no, but Esteban Ocon has signed with Haas to be Oliver Behrman's teammate. God bless you, Ollie Behrman. You are in for a reckoning next year.
Well, it's not a reckoning. I think
a wreck coming.
Yeah, I think Behrman's gonna unfortunately outperform Ocon in every race next season.
I hope so. But no, we still like Ocon. As we are saying this is a 50-minute penalty for Esteban Ocon. Carlos Sainz
grid penalty too.
Oh, dude, 50 place at this point. Speaking of 50 places behind where he usually finishes.
No, hold on. Hold the phone.
Oh.
Speaking of 50 plus place grid penalty, Yuki Tsunoda coming back from 78th grid penalty, 78th place to finishing top 16 in F1 races.
Crazy,
actually,
crazy work.
Probably the crazy.
He started behind everybody in the F3 race.
Talk about the insanity run Yuki Tsunoda had. Oh my goodness, man! 70th to 16th is a new record. It's got to be.
Oh, dude, no, I don't think it is. I think there was one Merc race where they came from 100 and something to finish. Yeah, they came from like 112th. I think it was Hamilton 2020 or something. After he won the championship, and he just Speaking of starting from the back, Carlos Sainz will be doing that a lot next year. He is signed with Williams. He signed with Williams. He believes in the long-term plan. It's the first F1 lineup ever to have no appendix between their two drivers.
I think we gotta get Carlos Sainz into Limp Bizkit so he can just listen to what's that one song? One of those days or whatever.
Yeah.
We gotta get him to listen to that all for next season because it's gonna be one of those days every weekend for him.
You talking about brake stuff?
Yeah, break stuff. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
We gotta get him into that because he's gonna need it.
Yeah.
To cope.
And and finally for the silly season, Mercedes are pretty much gonna tell everybody that they've signed Kimi Antonelli for next year and beyond, and probably forever. And I think they're gonna announce it at the next Italy race, whichever one it is. I believe is it Monza? I think it might be Monza.
I'm not sure.
I was correct. It's Monza. Don't get Kyle Larson there.
What? Oh, okay. Okay, bro.
Yeah, but that's the silly season news, and now we have a quick debate on is F1 turning for the worse?
In terms of what? Like what's the context? Like what?
In general, man, like it's just
Well,
we have OnlyFans and rumors now for sponsorship after rejecting Andretti for a team.
if you think about it, from my point of view, I've been watching F1 since 2017. This is pre-Liberty Media taking over majority of F1's share or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I've been watching since 2014, so we kind of started at the same point.
I remember my first race that I watched F1 live. I remember it was 4 a.m. I think I had to wake up 4 a.m. to watch it live. 4 a.m.
Damn,
the
bro.
2016 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Being able to see Nico Rosberg win that championship was cinema. But, regardless, seeing just watching F1 just become more a shell of its former self, it seems like, in terms of dignity and racing product as a whole, it's kind of depressing to think about because I feel like the peak of F1, at least in terms of just the sport as a whole being healthy and good and fun to watch, was probably I'd say in between 2017 and 2019. I think those were the last solid years of F1 before COVID hit and before everything kind of changed with
regulation changes,
everything, and the whole Liberty Media getting more into play of what the FIA has to say, and then we all know the Michael Massey debacle in 2021 Abu Dhabi, and I feel like just that was for me other than Max Verstappen
started the downward trajectory.
Yeah, that was the peak of F1 because of the last two laps of that race being chaotic and insane, and rules were broken,
and then it just fell off.
and then with the new regulations haven't really worked out as well, and it's just it hasn't hit the same. Let's put it at that. It hasn't hit the same since the new regulation changes.
And by no means are we Red Bull haters or anything like that. We actually liked Max Verstappen ever since he came in.
Yeah.
In 2015, 2016. So
I remember watching was it Max Verstappen compilation video back in 2016.
Oh, dude,
seeing
yes.
that. Remember the one where it had the Verstappen lion on the bottom right or top right corner?
Yeah.
Dude, I remember watching
dude's name. He made so many compilation videos.
I would have watched that the entire video during summer break in 2016, whatever, just learning more about Verstappen and just seeing how much potential he was actually pretty cool.
Yeah. But I do think with them rejecting Andretti, saying it's not a thing that would benefit Formula One, and it would rather benefit. How does OnlyFans benefit F1? Or how does F1 benefit from having OnlyFans? Are we seeing Pierre Gasly oiled up? I
think what you're seeing. I think what you're seeing is the FIA oiling up their hands for a little fun time after each race, because they're probably gonna get more younger audience watching the races now, because
just like Bernie, you love touching the young ones.
the news with this is going to create all through was it mainstream media and everything and all that stuff. It is going to be it's just gonna it's gonna be crazy, but It's gonna be like,
It's gonna be crazy, just like Bernie Ecclestone's hair.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
I don't.
yeah, no,
I don't know.
I
I'm lost
definitely
for words.
think. Yeah, I definitely think F1 needs to be better. I think it's getting better, but it needs work, and they're not taking full advantage of the drive to survive
It's like they
bolt that they had.
take one step forward and two steps back.
Yeah, well, more like 4, but yeah. Yeah, it's definitely very, very interesting, but yeah, that'll do it for our little F1 rant for the podcast. Next race is I don't even know. Oh, great, Dutch. Yeah, we're going to Zandvoort.
I thought you said it was Italy next.
No, no, the next Italy race is in Monza
Well,
because
yeah.
there's like 3 per season, but the next race is on August 25th.
Damn, that's a long time.
On Zandvoort. Yeah, they have a longer break than NASCAR does. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be the next race. We'll have predictions out the week before that race so that we can fully debate who has some upgrades and what we will see from all the main 4 teams essentially. Merc, Red Bull, Ferrari, and McLaren. But yeah, that'll do it for our F1 section. And yeah, again, what?
Why did you say McLaren like that?
McLaren?
Yeah.
McLaren?
Why?
Well, I don't know. I'm emotionally traumatized by their
Oh, so
actions
you
in
can't
Hungary,
just get
so I
them
cannot
out,
even
right?
say their name
Yeah.
correctly. Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah. Lando Norris, blink twice if you need help. Please come on the podcast.
Well, guys, I think that just about concludes it for another episode of the Apex Bros podcast. But before we go, we just want to give another special thank you to our sponsor, Victory Fuel. As I said once, I'll say it again. When you want to quench your thirst, they are first. Don't forget to use code APEX10, that's APEX10, at checkout to save 10% on your order. But that's going to do it for us this week. For myself, Leander, and Max, we will see you guys next week. Take care. Have a good night.